What's up, guys? So in this episode we're going to talk about how to set up over the golf ball correctly. 90% of the guys that I teach don't know how to set up over the ball, and the problem with that is with a bad setup it makes it much harder to learn the golf swing. Also, if the setup is bad, then everything that you've learned will break down very quickly, and it's hard to maintain that really good swing that you've made in the long run. So let's get started. The setup is so important because it's the foundation of your golf swing, right? You can't build a house with a bad foundation on it. For the setup position, I'll kind of start by going over what it should look like from the front view, and then I'll kind of explain what it looks like from the side view. As I'm explaining this thing, I will also demonstrate it in this separate clip. So from the front view, there's really just four main elements that you want to ensure that you're doing. So the first is the ball position, where you're placing the ball between your stance. Okay, so the second is just how wide or how narrow your stance should be, just to make sure that you have a stable foundation. The third is to ensure that your arms are fairly straight and you don't want to set up with a really bent arms. Okay, and fourth is just where you should be positioning your head relative to where the ball is. Okay, so I'm just going to show you guys what it should look like from the front view, where the ball should be placed in your stance, and how wide your stance should be in the setup. Okay, so when I put the ball on the mat, you'll notice a stick there. So that stick is just to kind of give you another visual of where the ball is in relation to my feet. So when I'm setting up, I'm making sure that this stick is slightly to the center or left of center in my stance. So the center is where my golf club is right here, so it's about an inch left. Okay, and that's where I'm going to kind of line up the golf ball with my stance. Okay, so after I put my grip on in a neutral position, right, my stance width now is about shoulder width. Okay, it's not too wide here, and it's not too narrow to where I can't really have any stability. About shoulder width apart there. Okay, so also I'll give you a point of view reference for the ball position, because I also want to point out the mistakes a lot of beginners make with regards to ball position. So just to give you a point of view reference of the ball position in your stance, I just want to point out the importance of referring to your heels when you're looking at ball position and not your toes. Okay, so right now I have this alignment stick position kind of right in the center of the stance. Okay, and a lot of beginners get confused with ball position because if they turn their toes in a certain way, now that line appears to be in the back or too far to the right of middle. Okay, reversely, if I do the opposite or do this, now it appears to be too far to the left of middle. Okay, so you never want to refer to your toes when you're looking at ball position. You always want to refer to your heels. Okay, so even if I move my toes, kind of flare them out or in, my heels are not moving. Okay, so you want to place the ball position relative to where your heels are. So now that you know how wide the stance should be and where the ball position should be, so when I'm setting up my grip on the handle, my arms are fully extended. A lot of beginners that I teach also tend to have really bent arms like this. Okay, they're not really extended as much as they could be. Okay, so the problem with starting off with really bent arms like that is, again, it makes it more likely that you're going to start the swing off with your wrists or your arms. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have your arms fully extended as you're standing over the ball. Okay, so the last piece to kind of show you from the front view is just where your head should be relative to where the ball is in your stance. Okay, so ball position slightly left of middle. So now most people that I see setting up for the first time, they have their head right on top of the golf ball like this, or even slightly to the left. Okay, So the problem with that is that if you start your swing from here, you'll deliver the club into the ball differently or incorrect, or tend to do that. So what you always want to make sure that you do is that if you truly are standing on top of your feet, balanced, your head will be positioned slightly behind the golf ball, or mostly behind the golf ball. Okay, so it should look like this. I don't know if you can see, but my head is slightly behind the golf ball and not in front of it. Okay, the other mistake that a lot of people make with putting their head in front of it like that is that causes you to also line up your body or move certain parts of your body out of alignment. And when I go through the setup position from the side view, you'll understand what I mean by that. So now that you have some general information on the setup from the front view, I'm going to be going over what it should look like from the side view. So now from the side, there's really only two things that you really need to make sure that you're doing. So the first is that you have to make sure your posture is in a really athletic position. Also, you want to make sure that you're lining up your body correctly, and I'll demonstrate that right now. So when I'm set up over the golf ball, you'll notice these sticks that I put on the ground. So this stick right here represents where I'm lining up my feet. Okay. This stick right here represents where I'm lining up my club face. Okay. Or in other words, the target line. Okay. So when I'm set up, wherever I aim my club face, I want to align my body parallel to that. Okay, so that means my stance is parallel, my hips are parallel, and my shoulders are all parallel to my target line. Okay, so what I don't like seeing is when the feet is pointing this way and my body is pointing to the left relative to where my club face is aiming, or reversely, when my stance is pointing to the right and my body is pointing to the right relative to where my club face is aiming. Okay? So if you cannot align your body parallel to the target line, that makes it a lot more difficult for you to start off your swing correctly, and it will cause you to compensate for that bad takeaway as well. So the most common error that I see with a lot of beginners in terms of how they line up their bodies is they tend to line up their bodies left relative to where their club face is aiming. So if you were a left-handed player, that would mean your body will tend to aim to the right relative to where your club face is aiming. Okay, so that's the most common position that beginners are in when they first come in to see me. So as a beginner, just learning the golf swing, I cannot stress enough how important this part of the setup is. You have to learn how to line up your body correctly, because that will also affect how you aim at the targets outside when you're on the course. So the last thing I want to show you guys is the posture from the side view. Okay, so when you're looking at me from the side, what you want to make sure that you're doing is, from when you're standing straight up like this, you only want a slight bend in the knees. Okay, so not too excessive, but just very slight. Okay, and then from there, all you want to do is just bend from the waist. Okay, so a slight bend in the knees, and then more so bend from the waist. Okay, just until you're comfortable. Okay, no, it doesn't have to be too excessive or anything like that. So a slight bend in the knees from the waist, and then you just want to get your arms hanging straight down. Okay, like really vertical like this. Okay, you don't want your arms to be hanging away from you or to be scrunched in like this. Okay, so if you have a pretty good, or if you're bent enough from the waist, right? If you look at yourself in a mirror, if you drop your arms straight, like just let them hang down, they should be hanging straight down. Okay, and that's where you should be holding the grip. Okay. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you've got some good information on how to set up to the golf ball. I tried to explain it in as simple terms as I possibly could, but if you guys got some more questions for me, please leave a comment below. I will respond to them and try to help you out as best I can. So just remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next episode.